The world was still dark. A deep, velvet blackness hugged the horizon. Only a faint hint of gray suggested the sun would soon rise. At Oak Haven International Airport, the lights glowed like scattered stars on the ground. Few people moved about. The giant halls echoed with a profound quiet. The air smelled of jet fuel and floor polish, a familiar scent for any traveler. This was a Tuesday, June 4th, 2025, an ordinary day by all accounts. Baggage handlers prepared for the first wave of luggage. Gate agents sipped coffee, their faces illuminated by computer screens. The departure boards flickered, listing destinations near and far. Each flight was a promise of arrival, a promise of connection. But the universe, in its vast indifference, sometimes breaks promises. This particular morning held a secret. A mystery was about to unfold. The ground crew moved like shadows across the tarmac, preparing aircraft for their voyages. On this day, one flight was destined to slip from the known. Flight Z913 was a modern marvel, a Boeing 777-300ER. It was a trusted workhorse of the skies, known for its reliability, its long range, its advanced avionics. It had a spotless maintenance record. Airlines around the globe depended on this type of aircraft. This specific plane, registered as N404ZA, was relatively new. It was equipped with all the latest safety features. At the helm was Captain Eva Rostova. She was a veteran pilot with over 20 years of flying experience. Her co-pilot, First Officer Kenji Tanaka, was also experienced. They were a competent team. The flight was scheduled for a transatlantic route, from Oak Haven to a major European city. Passengers boarded, settling into their seats. They were a mix of business travelers, tourists, families. The cabin crew, led by Chief Purser Alistair Finch, went through the safety demonstrations. Everything was normal. As the final checks were completed, Captain Rostova's voice came over the intercom. She welcomed the passengers aboard. She announced the expected flight time. The doors were sealed. Flight Z913 pushed back from the gate. Flight Z913 taxied to the runway. Its powerful engines hummed with restrained energy. The lights of the runway stretched out like a welcoming path. Air traffic control gave the clearance for takeoff. Captain Rostova advanced the throttles. The engines roared to life. A surge of power pressed passengers back into their seats. The aircraft accelerated down the runway. Then, gracefully, it lifted into the dark morning sky. It climbed steadily, a beacon of light ascending into the heavens. The ascent was smooth, just as Captain Rostova had predicted. The plane reached its initial cruising altitude. It set course for the open ocean. Below, the city lights receded. They became a glittering carpet. Then, they vanished. For the first hour, everything was perfectly normal. The autopilot was engaged. The pilots monitored their instruments. Flight attendants began their service. Passengers read, slept, or watched movies. Then, something changed. Air traffic controllers on the ground noticed it first. Flight Z913 began to deviate from its assigned flight path. It was a significant turn. A deliberate, sustained turn to the south. Controllers tried to contact the cockpit. Their calls were met with silence. The unknown had begun to cast its long shadow. Minutes stretched into an eternity for the air traffic controllers. Their screens showed Flight Z913 moving steadily, silently, off course. Repeated calls to the aircraft went unanswered. The standard communication channels yielded nothing but static. The tension in the control room was thick. Every eye was fixed on the rogue blip on the radar. They tried alternate frequencies. They asked nearby aircraft to try and raise Z913. Nothing. It was as if the plane had entered a bubble of silence. Then, after what felt like an age, a transmission broke through. It was faint, garbled, but it was unmistakably from Flight Z913. The voice was calm, almost too calm. It was later identified as Captain Rostova. Her words were not a distress call, not in the conventional sense. Instead, what she said sent shivers down the spines of those who heard it. The message was short, cryptic. "We see it now. Captain Rostova's voice said, with an eerie lack of inflection. "The stars are not stars. They are opening." There was a pause. A faint, almost melodic hum could be heard in the background. Then, she spoke again. "We are going towards the light. It is beautiful." Her voice was serene, and then, nothing. The transmission cut off abruptly. In the immediate aftermath, the world scrambled for answers. How could a modern airliner simply vanish? The initial theories focused on the known, the explainable. Could it have been a catastrophic mechanical failure, perhaps a sudden decompression or an electrical fire that disabled communications and navigation? Investigators pored over the aircraft's maintenance records. They found nothing amiss. The Boeing 777 was a robust machine. The search for wreckage began. Then came the human element. Could the pilots have been responsible? Pilot suicide was a dark but not unheard of possibility. Had Captain Rostova or First Officer Tanaka deliberately flown the plane to its doom? Background checks were run. Friends, family, and colleagues were interviewed. Both pilots appeared stable, well-adjusted. No signs of distress, no motives for such a horrific act. The possibility of foul play also loomed large. Terrorism, a hijacking gone wrong. But no group claimed responsibility. There were no demands, no political statements. The search area was vast. Thousands of square miles of deep ocean. Not a single piece of debris from Flight Z913 was found. As conventional explanations faltered, more outlandish theories began to surface. The human mind abhors a vacuum, especially a vacuum of information. When facts are scarce, speculation thrives. The cryptic final message from Captain Rostova became a focal point. The stars are not stars. They are opening. What could this mean? For some, it pointed towards extraterrestrial intervention. Had Flight Z913 been intercepted by an alien spacecraft? Abducted for reasons unknown? Others spoke of interdimensional portals. Perhaps the aircraft had inadvertently flown into a rift in space-time, a gateway to another reality or another time. Conspiracy theories involving governments and secret military operations also gained traction. Was Flight Z913 carrying sensitive cargo, or a person of great importance? The internet buzzed with these ideas. Flight Z913 was no longer just a missing airplane. Years passed. The mystery of Flight Z913 remained unsolved. It faded from the headlines, replaced by new tragedies, new wonders. But for the families of those on board, the wound never healed. The lack of closure was a constant ache. The official investigation eventually wound down. Its final report concluded that the fate of Flight Z913 was unknown. The cause of its disappearance could not be determined. Then, something unexpected happened. Almost a decade after the disappearance, a marine research vessel was conducting a survey in a remote part of the South Atlantic, far from the original search areas. They were mapping the ocean floor using remotely operated vehicles or ROVs. One of the ROVs stumbled upon a small field of debris. It was not immediately identifiable, but among the scattered items, something caught the operator's eye. A small, sealed, waterproof bag. Its contents were miraculously preserved. Inside the bag was a simple, spiral-bound notebook. The cover was faded. The pages were warped by moisture, despite the bag's protection. But there was writing inside. The notebook bore the name Anya Sharma. The world held its breath as experts painstakingly analyzed Anya Sharma's notebook. The pages were delicate. The ink was faded. Deciphering the entries was a slow, meticulous process. Much of the notebook contained mundane entries, notes about passenger requests, duty rosters, the ordinary jottings of a flight attendant's life. But the final few pages were different. The handwriting changed. It became rushed, scrawled, as if written under great duress, or perhaps under the influence of something extraordinary. The first of these strange entries began with a simple observation. The cabin lights are flickering, strange colors outside the windows. This was followed by notes about passenger anxiety. But then the tone shifted. Anya wrote about a sound, a low, resonant hum. Not like engine trouble. Something else. "It's in my head," she wrote. "The sound, it's Calming? No, that's not right, it's big. The most chilling entries were on the very last page. We are not falling, we are being drawn. Anya Sharma's notebook did not solve the riddle of Flight Z913. In many ways, it made the mystery even more profound. The physical evidence was still missing, the aircraft itself remained lost. The notebook was a single tantalizing clue, a whisper from the edge of the unknown. It confirmed the strange events described in the captain's last transmission, but it did not explain them. Were these the rational observations of trained professionals, or the shared experience of something truly inexplicable? The debate rages on. Today in 2025 we are no closer to a definitive answer. The scientific community remains divided. Some argue for conventional explanations, a complex series of cascading failures, a unique atmospheric phenomenon misinterpreted by a stressed crew. They point to the lack of verifiable, repeatable evidence for more exotic theories. Yet the calmness reported by both the captain and the flight attendant is hard to reconcile with a typical disaster scenario. For others, Flight Z913 represents a boundary, a point where our understanding of the universe meets its limit. The notebook, with its talk of opening stars and being drawn towards a light, fuels this sense of wonder. Flight Z913 is